I lay on my bathroom floor at 3 in the morning, unable to move after slipping on wet tiles. My hip screamed in agony. I called out for my son Derek, who lived in the converted garage apartment behind the house. No response. I dialed Derek's number repeatedly. The phone rang and rings from just 50 feet away. I could hear it through the walls. Derek never picked up. 3 hours passed. The cold seeped into my bones. I realized with crushing clarity that my only child didn't care if I lived or died. Dawn broke through my bathroom window, painting the white tiles in shades of pink and gold that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. But all I could focus on was the pain radiating from my right hip and the bitter cold that had worked its way into my bones during those 3 endless hours on the floor. I heard footsteps on my front porch, heavy, purposeful footsteps that definitely weren't Derek's. A voice called out, "Clay? Clay, you in there? Your newspapers are piling up, and your front door is open. Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor from 2 houses down. Thank God for nosy neighbors. In here," I managed to croak out. "Bathroom, can't move." Within minutes, my bathroom was full of people. Mrs. Patterson, still in her bathrobe, had called 911 immediately. 2 paramedics, a young man and an older woman, worked efficiently around me, asking questions, checking my vitals, preparing to move me. "How long have you been here, sir?" the female paramedic asked. 3 hours, maybe a little more. She exchanged a look with her partner. "Is there anyone else in the house? Family we should notify?" "My son, Derek. He lives in the garage apartment out back." My voice cracked. I called him 17 times. The male paramedic pulled out his phone. "What's his number? We'll get him over here." I recited Derek's number from memory. The paramedic dialed, waited, shook his head. No answer. "Want me to go knock on his door?" "His truck is in the driveway," Mrs. Patterson said quietly from the doorway. I saw it when I came in. It's been there all night. Something twisted in my chest that had nothing to do with my injured hip. Derek had been home. He'd been home the entire time. The paramedics loaded me onto a stretcher. The movement sent lightning bolts of pain through my body. I bit down hard to keep from screaming. As they wheeled me through my house, I caught a glimpse through the kitchen window. Derek's red pickup truck sat exactly where it had been when I'd gone to bed last night. The lights in the garage apartment were off now, but I remembered seeing them blazing at midnight when I'd looked out the bathroom window, hoping, praying that Derek would notice something was wrong. He'd been awake, he'd been home, and he'd ignored me. At the hospital, the emergency room doctor, a tired-looking man in his 40s named Dr. Patel, examined the x-rays and shook his head. "Fractured hip, Mr. Morrison. You're going to need surgery. We'll get an orthopedic surgeon down here right away." "Can someone try my son again?" I asked. "Derek Morrison." A nurse dialed the number 3 more times over the next hour while they prepped me for surgery. No answer. Mrs. Patterson stayed with me, holding my hand, making small talk about her garden to distract me from the pain and the medication making me drowsy. "Clay," she said gently, "I don't want to overstep, but this isn't the first time Derek has been unavailable when you needed him." I wanted to defend him. I wanted to explain that he was busy, that he had his own life, that I was probably being overdramatic about the whole thing. But the words wouldn't come. Maybe because they weren't true. Maybe because I was too tired to lie anymore. They wheeled me into pre-op around noon. Mrs. Patterson kissed my forehead like I was her own son and promised to check on my cat. The anesthesiologist was explaining what would happen when I heard a commotion outside the surgical suite. Derek's voice, loud and annoyed. "I'm his son. I have a right to see him." The doors swung open. Derek strode in, and my heart lifted for just a moment before I registered what I was seeing. He wasn't alone. His girlfriend Amber was with him, hanging on his arm. They were both dressed like they were going somewhere nice. Derek wore khaki pants and a button-down shirt I'd bought him last Christmas. Amber had on a sundress and heels. They both carried shopping bags. From the mall. Multiple bags. Derek's face showed irritation, not concern. "Dad, what's all this drama about? The hospital called me like 10 times. Drama." He called this drama. "I fell," I said, my voice flat from the medication. 3 hours ago. Actually, 6 hours ago now. I called you 17 times. My phone was on silent, Derek said, waving his hand dismissively. Amber and I were having some quality time. You know how it is. Quality time. While I lay on a bathroom floor, wondering if I was going to die alone, Amber squeezed Derek's arm and giggled. We went to that new brunch place downtown. The wait was like 2 hours, but totally worth it. Then we hit the outlets. You could have waited until morning to call an ambulance, Derek continued. It's not like you were dying. A fall is just a fall. Everyone overreacts to everything these days. Mrs. Patterson, who had followed them in, made a small sound of disgust. The anesthesiologist looked uncomfortable. I stared at my son, at this 32-year-old man I'd raised, and saw a stranger. You're right, I heard myself say. I overreacted. Thanks for coming. No problem, Derek said, already backing toward the door. Listen, we have dinner reservations at 6, so I should go. You'll be fine, right? They take good care of people here. He left. He actually left. Amber waved goodbye with her fingers, her nails freshly manicured, probably on my credit card that Derek had borrowed again last month and never returned. As the anesthesia pulled me under, I felt something inside me break. Not my hip. That was already broken. Something deeper. Something that had been cracking for years, but I'd kept plastering over with excuses and hope and the memory of the sweet little boy Derek used to be. That little boy was gone. Maybe he'd been gone for a long time, and I'd just been too stubborn or too scared to admit it. The last thing I thought before the darkness took me was that this was the moment everything changed. It had to change, because I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep dying like this. 5 days in the hospital felt like 5 years. The surgery went well, according to Dr. Patel, but the recovery would be long. 6 weeks of physical therapy, maybe more. I'd need a walker for at least a month. The physical therapist, a cheerful woman named Grace, put me through my first session on day 3, and I nearly cried from the pain and frustration. You're doing great for someone who spent 3 hours on a cold floor, she said, helping me back into bed. But you'll need help at home. Is your son able to assist you? I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Derek visited twice during those 5 days. The first visit lasted 12 minutes. He stood by the door, checked his phone 4 times, and told me he was dealing with some stuff but would try to check in more. The second visit was even shorter. 8 minutes. He'd brought me a magazine, the wrong kind, about sports I didn't follow, and left before I could even thank him properly. Mrs. Patterson visited every day. She brought real food because the hospital meals were terrible. She brought my mail, watered my plants, fed my cat Whiskers. On day 4, she sat in the chair beside my bed and fixed me with a look I recognized from my years as a high school history teacher. The look that said we were about to have an uncomfortable but necessary conversation. Clay, I'm going to say something, and you're going to listen. I nodded. Derek is using you. He's been using you for years, and you've been letting him because you're a good father and you love him. But love isn't supposed to hurt this much. Love isn't supposed to leave you on a bathroom floor for 3 hours. He didn't know, I started, but she held up her hand. His truck was in the driveway. His lights were on past midnight. I know because I was up with my insomnia, and I can see his apartment from my bedroom window. He knew, Clay, or he should have known. And even if he didn't know that specific night, what about all the other times? I couldn't argue because she was right. There had been so many other times. You're killing yourself for a boy who doesn't appreciate what he has, Mrs. Patterson continued, her voice softening. And I call him a boy because he hasn't grown into a man yet. Maybe he never will. But you need to decide how much more of your life you're willing to sacrifice while you wait to find out. After she left, I lay in that hospital bed and forced myself to think about things I'd been avoiding. I thought about Linda's funeral 8 years ago. Derek had missed the reception because of car trouble. Except later that night, I'd seen photos on his social media of him at a bar with friends, laughing, drinking. When I asked him about it, he'd gotten angry, said I was spying on him, said the car trouble happened after the funeral, said I should be grateful he came to the service at all. I thought about the $6,000 Derek borrowed 2 years ago to start a landscaping business. He'd been so excited, shown me business plans and equipment lists. I'd given him the money from my retirement savings, hopeful that he'd finally found his direction. The business never materialized. When I asked about it months later, Derek got vague, said the market was bad, said he was regrouping. I never saw a penny back. I thought about all the times Derek had borrowed my credit card. 4 times in the past year alone. Always supposedly temporary. Always for essentials. But the charges were never for essentials. Restaurants, video games, concert tickets. He'd pay me back, he always said. He never did. I thought about my retirement account. 8 years ago, when Linda died, I'd had $85,000 saved. Careful savings from decades of teaching, investing a little at a time. Now it was down to $42,000. Where had $43,000 gone? I knew where. It had gone to Derek's rent that he didn't pay, Derek's groceries that I bought, Derek's phone bill that I covered, Derek's emergencies that were never really emergencies. My pension was $2,300 a month. Should have been plenty for a single man living modestly. But I was giving Derek roughly $500 every month, sometimes more, plus the utilities for the garage apartment, which added another $150, plus the food, the random requests, the sudden needs. I was spending almost a third of my income keeping Derek afloat. And he wasn't even drowning. He was just treading water, content to let me do all the swimming. On my 4th night in the hospital, I called my lawyer, Harold Brennan. We'd been friends for 30 years, ever since I taught his daughter American history and helped her get into her dream college. Clay, Harold's warm voice came through the phone. How are you holding up? I need to make some changes, Harold. Legal changes. Can you come see me? I'll be there tomorrow morning. I came home on day 6. A home health aide named Patricia would visit 3 times a week. Physical therapy was scheduled to start in 4 days. Mrs. Patterson had stocked my refrigerator and left a casserole. The house felt empty and quiet. Derek didn't help me move back in. Didn't even know I was coming home because he hadn't asked. His truck was gone. Had been gone all day, according to Mrs. Patterson. I settled into my recliner with my walker beside me and stared at the garage apartment through the kitchen window. The first night home, I heard them, Derek and Amber, laughing, music playing, not loud enough to complain about, but loud enough that I knew they were having a good time, having a party while I sat 50 feet away, barely able to walk to my own bathroom. Day 2, Derek's truck was blocking my mailbox. I had to use my walker to hobble the extra 20 feet to get around it. Every step sent pain shooting through my healing hip. When I got back inside, I sat down and cried. Not from the pain, from the realization that my son had parked there deliberately or carelessly, and either option was heartbreaking. Day 3, I saw Harold. He sat in my living room, his briefcase open, and listened while I talked. I told him everything. The fall, the 3 hours, the hospital visits, the money, all of it. Harold's face grew darker with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Clay, I need to show you something. He pulled out a calculator and a legal pad. Let's do some math. He wrote down my pension amount, my retirement savings, my monthly expenses. Then he added in what I was giving Derek. At your current spending rate, with Derek's drain on your resources, you'll run out of money by the time you're 73. You're 67 now. That gives you 6 years. After that, you'll be dependent on Social Security alone, which won't be enough to maintain your house or your standard of living. The number hit me like a truck. 73. I'd always planned to have enough to last until at least 95. Linda and I had been so careful, so strategic, and in 8 years, most of it since she died, I'd let Derek destroy those plans. But if you cut off Derek's support entirely, Harold continued, your money will last until you're 92, maybe longer. You could actually enjoy your retirement. Travel, live comfortably, not worry. I want to change my will, I said. Harold nodded. I thought you might. What are you thinking? Everything goes to charity, the public library, the animal shelter where Linda volunteered. Derek gets nothing. Harold didn't look surprised. I can draft that this week. But Clay, you should also think about protecting your assets now. Can Derek access your bank accounts? He knows which bank I use. He's seen my statements. Open a new account at a different bank. Transfer your retirement savings there. Don't tell him about it. And consider closing your current checking account and opening a new one. Leave minimal money in any account Derek knows about. Over the next week, I followed Harold's advice. I opened new accounts at a credit union across town, transferred my $42,000 in savings, set up a new checking account, and had my pension direct deposited there. Closed my old accounts and opened one new checking account at my old bank with just $300 in it. Enough to look real, not enough to hurt me if Derek found a way to access it. I felt like a spy in my own life, but I also felt something else. Power, control. For the first time in years, I was making decisions to protect myself instead of enable my son. Physical therapy was brutal but effective. Grace pushed me hard, and I responded. My body was healing, but more than that, I was healing. Mrs. Patterson introduced me to her book club, 8 people, mostly retirees, who met every Thursday night at the library. I started going, started talking to people about books instead of worrying about Derek. Derek, meanwhile, continued his pattern. He'd stop by every few days, always with a handout. $20 for gas. Could I order pizza because he and Amber were hungry? His phone bill was due. Each time, I gave him something, but not as much as before, and I started keeping a record. Every dollar, every request, every date and time. On the 13th day after my fall, Derek knocked on my door around 7 in the evening. I was reading a book for book club, a biography of Theodore Roosevelt. "Hey, Dad." Derek leaned against the door frame, trying to look casual. "Can I come in?" "Of course." He sat on the couch, fidgeting. I waited. "So, I need to borrow some money. Just temporary." "How much?" "Like $160. My credit card bill is due, and I'm a little short." A little short, the phrase he always used. I set down my book. "Where's the money from that construction job you told me about last month?" Derek's eyes shifted. "That fell through. Market's really bad right now." "What about the warehouse position you had an interview for?" "Didn't get it. They said I was overqualified." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. Can you believe that? I could believe it. I could believe Derek had never actually applied, or had shown up late, or had said something that turned them off, because that was the pattern. Always had been. "Let me get my wallet." I stood, using my cane, walked to the kitchen where I'd left my wallet on the counter, came back and handed Derek $200 in cash. "Here, this should cover it and a little extra." Derek's face lit up. "Thanks, Dad. You're a lifesaver. I'll pay you back on Friday when I get paid from this side gig I've got going." He wouldn't. We both knew he wouldn't, but I smiled and nodded. After Derek left, I added the transaction to my log. $200, September 18th, credit card bill. I photographed the page and texted it to Harold. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about that $200, thinking about how easy it had been for Derek to ask, how automatic it had been for me to give, like a reflex I couldn't control. At 2 in the morning, I got up to use the bathroom. As I passed the kitchen window, I glanced toward the garage apartment. The lights were on. I could hear music, laughter. Through the thin curtains, I saw shadows moving. Derek and Amber were having people over. On a Tuesday night. While I'd just given Derek money, he claimed he desperately needed for bills. I stood there in the dark kitchen, leaning on my cane, watching the party in my garage apartment, and I made a decision. This had to stop. Not gradually, not eventually. Now. The next morning, I called Harold. Move forward with everything. The will, the accounts, all of it. I want my ducks in a row. Are you sure, Clay? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. 9 days after that phone call, after the will was finalized and filed, after all my money was secure, after I'd documented everything, Derek came to see me in the afternoon. I was on my front porch, reading, making good progress with the cane. The walker sat unused inside. I heard footsteps in the kitchen, heard the unmistakable sound of my wallet being opened. I'd left it there deliberately, with $200 cash inside. Another test. I stood quietly and walked to the kitchen doorway. Watched through the gap as Derek, thinking I was still outside, took $160 from my wallet, leaving just $40. Not all of it, just enough to be less obvious. He didn't ask permission. He didn't leave a note. He just took it and put the wallet back. I stayed silent, watched him walk out the back door toward the garage apartment, pulled out my phone and texted Harold immediately. He just stole from my wallet, $160. I watched him do it. Harold's response came fast. That's all the proof we needed. Time to move forward? Yes, all the way. That night, I sat on my porch and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness, not joy, but peace. The peace of finally accepting reality and preparing to do something about it. Derek had made his choice. Now I was making mine. The next 3 weeks moved with surprising speed. Harold drafted all the documents I needed. The new will was airtight. Everything I had, everything I'd worked for, would go to the library and the animal shelter. 2 causes Linda and I had always supported. 2 places that would use the money to actually help people instead of enabling one person's refusal to grow up. Harold also helped me draft an eviction notice. 30 days. Legal, formal, impossible to ignore. We scheduled it to be delivered by a process server, not by me. I didn't trust myself to hand it to Derek directly. Some part of me might weaken, might apologize, might take it back. This way, there was no room for negotiation. But before we served the eviction notice, there was something else I needed to do. Something that would make Derek understand exactly what had changed and why. I created what Harold jokingly called my evidence package, a manila folder containing everything Derek needed to see, every piece of documentation I'd gathered, every receipt, every bank statement, every screenshot. The story of our relationship told in dollars and disappointments. Inside the folder, I placed a copy of my new will, highlighted the relevant sections so Derek couldn't miss them. Everything to charity, nothing to him. Clear as daylight. I printed out 3 years of financial records showing every dollar I'd given him. The total came to $38,460, almost $40,000 in 3 years. More than my annual pension. Enough to buy a new car. Enough for a down payment on a house. Gone. Spent on a grown man who could work but chose not to. I included screenshots from Derek's social media. Photos of him at concerts, restaurants, sporting events. All the expensive fun he was having on my dime while I worried about stretching my pension to cover groceries. I printed photos of the garage apartment. I'd taken them one afternoon when Derek was out. The damage was worse than I'd thought. Holes punched in the drywall. Carpet stained beyond cleaning. A broken window that had been covered with cardboard for months. The shower door hanging off its hinges. My contractor estimated $9,000 in repairs. $9,000 more Derek's lifestyle would cost me. And then I wrote the letter. That was the hardest part. I drafted it 7 times before I got it right. Had to make it clear, honest, firm. Had to say everything I'd been afraid to say for years. The letter began. Derek, by the time you read this, you've already proven what I needed to know. I explained about the wallet, about watching him steal from me, about the 3 hours on the bathroom floor, about every broken promise and every empty apology. I wrote, I loved your mother with everything I had. When she died, I promised her I'd take care of you. But she meant raise you to be a good man, not enable you to be a user. I failed her by making you weak. I'm done. I told him about the 30-day eviction notice, about the new will, about the fact that I was protecting myself because he'd proven over and over that he wouldn't. I ended with, you're 32 years old. It's time to grow up. I spent my whole career teaching young people about history so they wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. You're repeating the same mistakes every day. I'm too old and too tired to watch anymore. Goodbye, Derek. I hope you figure it out before it's too late. But that's your journey now, not mine. Harold read the letter and got misty-eyed. Clay, this is one of the hardest things a parent can do. Are you ready? I'm ready. The plan was simple. I would tell Derek there was money in my messenger bag, the brown leather bag Linda had bought me years ago for carrying teaching supplies. I'd started carrying it since the hospital to hold my medications and important documents. Derek had seen it 100 times. Had probably thought about what might be inside. I'd put the folder in the bag. Tell Derek to check it. Let him open it expecting cash. Let him find the truth instead. The eviction notice would be served the same day by a process server, just to make it official and legal. But the folder would be the real message. The one that came from me, from my heart, explaining why this was happening. I just needed the right moment. And I knew it would come soon. Derek always came around when he needed something. It was only a matter of time. While I waited, my life continued to improve in ways I hadn't expected. Physical therapy was working wonders. I'd graduated from the cane to walking unassisted for short distances. Grace said I was her star patient, healing faster than most people my age. The book club became a highlight of my week. I'd never been much of a joiner, but these people welcomed me warmly. We debated books, shared stories, laughed at each other's jokes. One member, a retired engineer named Frank, and I discovered we both loved woodworking. Started planning to build birdhouses together in his garage workshop. Mrs. Patterson remained my fierce advocate and friend. She'd started bringing me dinner twice a week, refusing to let me eat alone. "You're healing," she'd say. "Body and soul. Both need nourishment." I started planning things, small things at first. Maybe a trip to Gettysburg in the spring. I'd always wanted to see the battlefield, walk where history happened. Linda and I had talked about it but never went. Maybe it was time. I looked into volunteer opportunities at the library. They needed people to help with the literacy program, teaching adults to read. That appealed to me, using my teaching skills for something meaningful again. I even, on Mrs. Patterson's encouragement, went to church with her one Sunday. I hadn't been since Linda's funeral, but the service was comforting, the people kind, and the pastor gave a sermon about new beginnings that felt directed straight at me. "It's never too late to choose yourself," the pastor said. "God doesn't ask us to set ourselves on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is set boundaries and trust that the people we love will rise to meet them or won't. Either way, we've done our part." Those words stayed with me. Meanwhile, Derek's situation was deteriorating. I heard things through Mrs. Patterson's network of neighborhood gossips. Derek had burned through most of his local friends, borrowing money he never repaid. His credit cards were maxed out. Amber was getting restless, complaining on social media about guys who couldn't provide. I felt a twinge of sadness but not guilt. Derek had choices. He'd always had choices. He chose easy over hard, chosen comfort over growth, chosen to take from me instead of building something for himself. On a Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after I'd finalized everything with Harold, I was on my front porch with my coffee and my book. The weather was beautiful. Cool breeze, bright sun, leaves just starting to turn color. Fall in Virginia was gorgeous. Derek's truck pulled up. He got out slowly. Even from 50 feet away, I could see he looked rough. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. He walked across the yard with his hands in his pockets, trying to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Dad. Got a minute? Need to talk to you about something important." This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for. I felt remarkably calm. "Of course, son. What do you need?" Derek sat down in the chair next to mine, launched into his pitch. His truck needed emergency repairs, transmission problems. The mechanic said $1,600. Without the truck, he couldn't work, couldn't get to job interviews, couldn't do anything. He'd called everyone he knew. Nobody could help. He knew he'd asked for a lot lately, but this was different. This was critical. He just needed $1,500 to get back on his feet. He'd pay me back with his first paycheck from this new job he definitely had lined up. Definitely. Interview was next week. Basically a sure thing. Every word was a lie, or at least a carefully crafted exaggeration. I could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice. The truck probably needed some work, but not $1,600 worth. There was no job interview, and he'd never pay me back. I listened without expression. When he finished, I took a sip of my coffee, let the silence stretch, watched Derek squirm. "Check my purse," I said finally, gesturing toward the house. "It's on the kitchen table. Take what you need." Derek's face transformed. Surprise, relief, greed all flashing across his features in quick succession. "Seriously, Dad, thank you. Thank you so much. I promise I'll pay you back this time. I really will. It's in there. Go ahead." Derek practically ran into the house. I stayed on the porch, picked up my book, waited. This was it. Everything was about to change. And for the first time in years, I was ready. I heard the screen door slam as Derek rushed into the kitchen. Heard his footsteps on the tile floor I'd installed myself 15 years ago with Linda directing me, laughing at my measurements that were never quite straight. I heard the scrape of the chair as Derek grabbed my messenger bag from the kitchen table. Then silence. I counted slowly in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. I imagined Derek's hands on the zipper. 5, 6, 7. The folder coming out instead of an envelope of cash. 8, 9, 10. The moment of confusion. 11, 12, 13. The folder opening. 14, 15, 16. The papers inside. The will. The financial records. 17, 18, 19. The letter. 20. A sound came from the kitchen. Half gasp, half groan. The sound of a man realizing he'd made a terrible miscalculation. I turned the page of my book, though I wasn't reading anymore. Just needed something to do with my hands. Derek appeared in the doorway. His face had gone pale. The folder hung from his left hand like something dead. In his right hand, my letter, crumpled slightly at the edges where he'd gripped it too hard. "Dad." His voice cracked. "What is this?" I set down my book, looked at my son directly. "It's the truth, Derek. Everything you needed to know, but I was too scared to tell you. You're cutting me out of your will? You're kicking me out?" His voice rose. "I'm your son. Yes, you are. And that's why this breaks my heart. But I won't let you destroy what's left of my life." Derek came onto the porch, waving the papers. "This is insane. Mom would be ashamed of you." The words were designed to hurt, to manipulate. They might have worked a month ago, but not now. "Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become," I said quietly. "Not of me for finally setting boundaries." "Boundaries?" Derek laughed, but it sounded desperate. "This isn't boundaries. This is abandonment." "No." I stood up, steady on my feet, no cane needed. "Abandonment is ignoring your father for 3 hours while he lies on a bathroom floor. Abandonment is stealing from his wallet. Abandonment is treating him like an ATM instead of a human being. I didn't abandon you, Derek. You abandoned me first." Derek's mouth opened and closed. He looked at the papers again, as if hoping they'd changed. $38,000? That can't be right. It's right. 3 years of records. Every dollar documented. Every request logged. I've been keeping track for 6 weeks now. The rest is from bank statements and credit card bills. But I needed that money. You're my father. You're supposed to help me. I helped you for years, Derek. I helped you through college. I helped you with your car, your apartment, your bills, your emergencies. I helped you until I had almost nothing left. When does it end? When I'm broke. When I'm dead. Derek's face flushed red. You're being dramatic. You're not broke. You have your pension. And at the rate you were draining me, I'd be broke by age 73. Harold did the math. 6 more years, Derek. 6 more years, and you would have taken everything your mother and I spent 40 years saving. Harold. Derek spat the name. You got your lawyer involved? You're involving lawyers against your own son? I involved my lawyer to protect myself. Because you've proven I can't trust you. You stole from my wallet, Derek. I watched you do it. Derek's face went from red to white. I was going to pay you back. You never pay me back. You never have. Not once in 3 years. The sound of a truck door slamming made us both turn. Amber was walking across the yard, her phone in her hand, confusion on her face. Derek? What's going on? You've been in there forever. And I'm getting hot sitting in the truck. Derek looked between me and Amber. Trapped. Amber reached the porch, saw the papers in Derek's hand, the expression on his face. Did you get the money? It's not money, Derek said. He's kicking me out, cutting me out of his will. Amber's eyes widened. She looked at me. You can't do that. Derek is your son, and Derek has 30 days to find another place to live. The eviction notice will be served by a process server this afternoon. This is crazy. Amber turned to Derek. Don't let him do this to you. I looked at Amber, really looked at her. 28 years old, pretty, selfish, using Derek as much as Derek was using me, maybe more. I heard you, I said. Amber froze. What? That night after I fell the second time. You and Derek were arguing. Your voices carried through the window. You called me a gold mine, told Derek to keep the golden goose happy so the money kept coming. I heard every word. Amber's face drained of color. She looked at Derek. You said he couldn't hear us. Derek closed his eyes. Amber, shut up. But Amber was panicking now, her survival instinct kicking in. This is your fault. You said he'd never cut you off. You said he was too soft. You said we could keep this going for years. Amber. Derek grabbed her arm, but she shook him off. No, I'm not going down with you. I told you to be smarter about it. I told you not to be so obvious. But you couldn't help yourself, could you? Always needing more. Always pushing. She turned to me. I tried to get him to back off. I told him he was being too greedy. You told him to be more strategic about bleeding me dry, I said. Not to stop, just to be sneakier. Amber opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Derek stood there, his world crumbling, watching his girlfriend reveal exactly who they both were. His face went through a journey. Shock at Amber's betrayal, anger at being exposed, and then something else. Something that looked almost like recognition, like he was seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. Get out, Derek said to Amber. What? Get out. Go back to the truck. Better yet, walk home. I'm done. Derek, I was just trying to help. You were using me to use my dad. Get out. Amber looked between us, realized she'd played her hand wrong, and left. Stomped across the yard in her heels, got in Derek's truck, and sat there with her arms crossed like a petulant child. Derek watched her go, then looked back at me. The anger had drained from his face, replaced by something raw and desperate. Dad, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I can change. How many times have you said that, Derek? I mean it this time. You meant it last time, and the time before that, and every time before that. But nothing changes. You just get better at promising, and worse at delivering. I need help, Derek said, his voice breaking. I know I do. But cutting me off completely, that's not help. That's giving up. I'm not giving up on you. I'm giving up on this version of you. The version that uses people. The version that takes and never gives back. If you want to change, really change, then do it. But not on my dime. Not at my expense. Not while I watch you destroy yourself and take me down with you. Derek sank into the chair he'd sat in just minutes ago, when he'd thought he was getting $1,500. He put his head in his hands. What am I supposed to do? Get a job. Any job. Pay your own bills. Live like an adult. Like every other 32-year-old in America. Where am I supposed to go? That's your problem to solve, Derek. You have 30 days. Figure it out. I don't have any money. You had money for brunch and shopping the day I was in the hospital. You have money for concerts and restaurants. You just don't have money for rent and responsibility. That's a choice, not a circumstance. We sat in silence. Across the yard, Mrs. Patterson had come out onto her porch. She stood there, arms crossed, watching. A few houses down, I saw Tom Bradley, the retired cop, also watching. Other neighbors had appeared, drawn by the raised voices. Derek's public unraveling had an audience. Derek noticed them too. Saw the community that had supported me, that had witnessed his neglect, that knew exactly who he was. He stood up slowly, the folder still in his hand. Fine, he said. Fine. You want me gone? I'm gone. But don't expect me to come back when you're old and really need help. Don't expect me to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself. The threat was supposed to hurt. It was supposed to make me panic and take it all back. Instead, I felt relief. Derek, you didn't take care of me when I was lying on a bathroom floor at 3 in the morning. Why would I expect anything different when I'm 80? He had no answer for that. He walked toward his truck, where Amber sat waiting, turned back once. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but I regret the last 3 years more. So at least this is a different kind of regret." Derek got in his truck. Amber immediately started talking, gesturing wildly. I could see them arguing even through the windshield. They sat there for a full 5 minutes, fighting. Then Derek started the engine and drove away. Mrs. Patterson crossed the yard to my porch. Tom Bradley followed. 3 other neighbors joined them. "Are you okay, Clay?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "I am," I said, and realized I meant it. "I really am." Tom Bradley put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing. That took real courage." "It took too long," I said, "but at least I finally did it." We stood together on my porch, this group of people who'd become my support system, and watched the empty driveway where Derek's truck had been. The garage apartment sat silent behind my house, full of his mess, his damage, his abandoned life. I had 30 days to deal with it. 30 days before Derek would be truly gone. Part of me wondered if he'd change his mind, show up apologetic and transformed. Part of me knew he wouldn't, but the biggest part of me, the part that had been dying slowly for years, felt something it hadn't felt in so long I'd almost forgotten the sensation. Hope. The process server arrived 3 hours later, a professional woman in her 40s who knocked politely and handed Derek the official eviction notice. I watched from my living room window as Derek took the papers, his face going hard, and slammed the door to the garage apartment in her face. Over the next 2 weeks, I didn't hear from Derek at all. His truck came and went at odd hours. Boxes appeared in the garage apartment, visible through the windows. He was packing, slowly, reluctantly, but packing. Through Mrs. Patterson's network, which was better than any intelligence agency, I learned pieces of Derek's situation. Amber had left him 3 days after our confrontation. Moved in with another guy she'd apparently been seeing on the side. Derek had tried to crash at his friend Jason's place but wore out his welcome after 4 days by eating all the food and not contributing to rent. He'd tried 2 other friends. Both said no up front, apparently tired of Derek's patterns. One, Marcus, his friend from high school, had actually called me. "Mr. Morrison, this is Marcus Chen. I don't know if you remember me." "Of course I do, Marcus. You and Derek played basketball together." "Yeah. Listen, Derek showed up at my house last night, asked if he could stay for a while. I said no, and he got pretty upset. I just wanted you to know, in case, I don't know, in case it matters. He's not doing well. I appreciate you calling, Marcus. Can I ask you something? Is it true you cut him off completely?" "It's true." "Good," Marcus said, and his voice was firm. "I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but good. Derek's been like this since high school, honestly. Always had an excuse. Always had someone to bail him out. Maybe this will finally wake him up." After Marcus hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time. Even his friends knew. Everyone knew except me. Or maybe I'd known too, but I'd loved him too much to see it clearly. I spent those 2 weeks preparing the garage apartment for its next phase. Hired a contractor to assess the damage and give me a quote. $9,200 to fix everything Derek had broken or neglected. I winced at the number but approved the work. I also spent those weeks healing in other ways. Physical therapy ended with Grace declaring me fully recovered, stronger than before the fall. "You're in better shape now than most 67-year-olds I see," she said. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." What I was doing was living again. Book club every Thursday. Woodworking with Frank on Saturday mornings. We'd built 4 birdhouses so far, each one a little better than the last. Volunteer orientation at the library, where I met the coordinator of the literacy program and signed up to tutor 2 nights a week starting in November. Mrs. Patterson introduced me to her sister, Dorothy, at church one Sunday. Dorothy was 64, widowed like me, sharp and funny and kind. We talked for 20 minutes after the service about nothing important, just pleasant conversation. She mentioned she liked hiking. I mentioned I'd always wanted to try it, but Linda had bad knees. Dorothy smiled and said there was a great trail at the state park, easy for beginners. Maybe we could go sometime. I said yes. We went hiking the following Saturday. Just a 2-mile loop, nothing strenuous, but beautiful. Fall colors in full display, the air crisp and clean. Dorothy was good company, easy to talk to, no pressure. We stopped for coffee afterward. She paid for hers, insisted on it. "I'm a modern woman," she said with a wink. "I buy my own coffee." I liked her. Not in a replace Linda way. Nobody could replace Linda. But in a maybe there's still life ahead kind of way. My life was expanding while Derek's contracted. I felt guilty about that sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet. But mostly I felt relieved. And that relief felt like freedom. On day 28 of the 30-day eviction notice, Derek's truck was gone from the garage apartment. I waited until evening, then walked over with my key, opened the door and stepped inside. He'd taken his stuff but left the damage. The holes in the walls, the stained carpet, the broken shower door, trash bags piled in the corner, full of things he didn't want but didn't bother to properly dispose of. The place smelled like old food and neglect. I stood in the middle of that apartment and felt the weight of 3 years. 3 years of enabling, of hoping, of slowly dying while my son slowly rotted. This apartment was a metaphor for our relationship, full of potential, treated carelessly, left to decay. I called the contractor the next morning. "Let's start the repairs." While they worked, I focused on my new routines, teaching literacy 2 nights a week to adults who'd never learned to read properly. Their gratitude was overwhelming. One woman, 53 years old, cried when she successfully read her first full page without help. "I've been faking it my whole life," she said. "Now I'm really doing it." I understood that feeling. I'd been faking it too. Faking that everything with Derek was fine. Faking that I wasn't hurting. Faking that this was what father-son relationships looked like. Now I was really doing it. Really living. Really making choices that served me instead of drained me. The garage apartment took 3 weeks to repair. When it was done, it looked better than it had in years. Fresh paint, new carpet, the bathroom completely redone. I took photos for a rental listing, priced it fairly, had 10 inquiries within 2 days. I chose Sarah, a 27-year-old nurse who worked at the hospital where I'd had my surgery. She was quiet, responsible, showed me references from her previous landlord without being asked. First and last month's rent, plus deposit paid by check, handed over with a smile. "I'll take good care of it, Mr. Morrison. I know you will." Sarah moved in on a Tuesday. That Saturday, I had coffee with Dorothy again. Then Sunday, brunch with the book club people. Monday was tutoring. Tuesday, I built birdhouses with Frank. Wednesday, I had dinner at Mrs. Patterson's house with her, her husband, and Tom Bradley and his wife. We played cards afterward, laughed until my stomach hurt. Thursday night, book club as usual. But afterward, Harold showed up at my door with a bottle of wine. "Celebrating?" I asked. "You could say that. Derek's 30 days are up. He's officially no longer your responsibility." I thought we should mark the occasion. We sat on my porch, now decorated with the birdhouses Frank and I had built, and drank wine and talked about everything except Derek, about the Nationals making the playoffs, about Harold's granddaughter starting college, about the new restaurant downtown that everyone said was excellent. As Harold was leaving, he turned back. "Clay, I want you to know something. I've been a lawyer for 37 years. I've seen a lot of bad family situations. What you did, setting boundaries like that, it wasn't easy. Most people can't do it. They stay stuck in bad patterns forever. You got unstuck. That's worth celebrating." After he left, I sat on my porch alone and looked at the garage apartment. Lights were on. Sarah was home from her shift. I could see her moving around, normal evening activities, living her life without drama or chaos or taking advantage. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Dad?" Derek's voice. Smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Hello, Derek. I'm calling from a borrowed phone. Mine got shut off." I said nothing. Waited. "I wanted you to know. I'm okay. I'm staying at a shelter. Not the streets or anything. A church shelter. They have programs here. For guys like me who need help." "That's good, Derek. There's counseling and job placement help. And they're strict about the rules, which is weird but also kind of good. I don't know. It's just different. Different can be good." Silence on the line. Then, I met with a counselor yesterday. His name is Pastor Jim. He asked me about my family. I told him about you, about what happened. You know what he said? What did he say? He said you loved me enough to let me fail. He said most parents are too scared to do that, so their kids never learn. He said hitting bottom was the best thing that could happen to me because now I had nowhere to go but up. Derek's voice cracked. I'm at the bottom, Dad. It sucks here. I know it does. But Pastor Jim is right. This is my fault. All of it. And I need to fix it. Not you. Me. I closed my eyes. Felt tears on my face. Yes, you do. I have a job interview tomorrow. Night shift stocking shelves at the grocery store. It's not much, but it's something. It's a start. Dad, I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. And I'm sorry. Really sorry. For all of it. For the bathroom. For the money. For everything. I believe you, Derek. Do you think, someday, we could maybe try again? Not now. I know it's too soon. But someday, I thought about it. Really thought about it. About whether I could trust him again. Whether I wanted to try. Whether there was anything left to salvage. Call me in a week, I said. Tell me how the job interview went. We'll start there. Really? 1 call. 1 week. We'll see where it goes. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. He hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, looking at the stars, thinking about second chances and rock bottom in the long road ahead. I didn't know if Derek would really change. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. But for the first time in years, it wasn't my job to fix him. It was his job to fix himself. And for the first time in years, I was okay with that. Derek called a week later, as promised. Got the job. Minimum wage, night shift, stocking shelves at the big grocery store on Route 7. He sounded tired but proud. I congratulated him. We talked for 8 minutes. He didn't ask for money. I didn't offer any. The next week he called again. Still working, sleeping at the shelter, following all the rules. Pastor Jim was teaching him about budgeting. Derek had opened a savings account, was trying to save $50 from each paycheck. It wasn't much, but it was his. The 3rd week, the call lasted longer. Derek told me about his coworkers, about the manager who was tough but fair, about learning the inventory system, about how his feet hurt from standing all night, but he was getting used to it. He sounded different, more grounded, more present. Pastor Jim says I can stay at the shelter for up to 6 months while I get on my feet, Derek said. After that, they help you find a room somewhere, a boarding house or something. Nothing fancy, but it's mine if I can afford it. That sounds like a solid plan. Yeah. A pause. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you doing okay? I mean, with everything? Your hip and stuff? The question surprised me. When had Derek last asked how I was doing? I'm doing well. Fully healed. Stronger than before, actually. That's good. I'm glad. We talked a bit more, then said goodbye. After he hung up, I sat and thought about this new Derek, this person who asked how I was doing and didn't demand anything. It felt strange, but good strange. Over the next 2 months, the calls continued. Every Sunday morning at 9, Derek never missed one. I learned about his life at the shelter, his growing friendship with Pastor Jim, his progress in the counseling program. He talked about his mistakes, owned them, didn't make excuses. In early November, Derek called with big news. I got promoted. Day shift, small raise. $11.50 an hour now. That's wonderful, Derek. And I found a room in a boarding house on Maple Street. $300 a month. It's small, but it's clean. I can move in December 1st if I have the deposit. Do you have it? Almost. I'll have it by then if I keep saving. I wanted to offer to help. The old reflex kicked in hard, but I bit my tongue. This was Derek's victory to earn. I'm proud of you for saving it yourself. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. In mid-November, Derek asked if we could meet in person, just for coffee, at that place downtown, the one with the good muffins. I'll pay for mine. The emphasis on paying for his own coffee nearly broke my heart. We met on a Saturday morning. I got there first, sat at a corner table, nervous in a way I couldn't quite name. When Derek walked in, I barely recognized him. He'd gained weight, the healthy kind, filling out his face. His hair was cut neatly, his clothes were clean and fit properly, but the biggest change was in his eyes. They were clear, focused, present. He ordered at the counter, paid with his own money, and brought his coffee and a muffin to the table. Sat down across from me. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, Derek." We talked for an hour, about his job, his room, his plans. He was taking an online course in business management, paid for by a grant the shelter had helped him apply for. He'd broken things off with Amber permanently, though she'd tried to come back twice. "I can see her now," he said. "See what she was doing. What we both were doing. It's embarrassing. It's growth," I said. He asked about my life. Really asked. Really listened. I told him about the literacy program, about Frank and the birdhouses, about Dorothy. His eyebrows went up at that last one. "Dorothy? Are you dating Dad?" I laughed. "I don't know. We're spending time together. She's nice. Good. You deserve nice." As we were leaving, Derek paused on the sidewalk. "Can we do this again? Next week?" "I'd like that." We shook hands. I'd offered to hug him, but he'd stepped back. "Not yet," he said. "I don't deserve that yet." The honesty gutted me, but I respected it. The weekly coffee meetings became a pattern. Every Saturday, 9 in the morning, Derek always paid for his own food. We talked about real things. He shared his struggles honestly. There were bad days, days when he wanted to quit, to give up, to fall back into old patterns. But he kept showing up to work, to counseling, to our coffee meetings. In December, he moved into the boarding house, showed me photos of his room. Tiny, a bed, a dresser, a small table, but clean and his. "I've never paid for my own place before," he said. "Never had to budget for everything myself. It's harder than I thought. Most things worth doing are." By January, Derek had been at his job for 4 months. His manager put him in charge of training new employees. "They trust me," Derek said, wonder in his voice. "They actually trust me to teach other people." In February, he brought someone to our coffee meeting. A woman named Julie, maybe 29, with a kind face and a firm handshake. She was a 3rd-grade teacher, met Derek at the church the shelter was affiliated with. They'd been seeing each other for 6 weeks. I watched them together. The way Julie gently teased Derek, the way Derek listened when she talked, the way he deferred to her opinions, valued her input. This was different from Amber. Healthier. Real. After Julie excused herself to the restroom, Derek leaned forward. "I told her everything, Dad. About the money. About you. About how I was. She knows all of it." "What did she say?" She said, "Everyone has a past. What matters is what you do with your future." He smiled. "She also said, if I ever treat her like I treated you, she'll kick me to the curb so fast I won't know what hit me." I liked Julie immediately. Through spring, Derek's progress continued. He completed the management training program, got promoted to assistant manager, $18 an hour, found a small apartment, 1 bedroom, modest but his own, started paying off old debts, and he started doing something else. In April, he handed me an envelope at our coffee meeting. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a check, $500, made out to me. "Derek, I don't need this. I know you don't, but I do. I owe you $38,460. This is a start, $50 every month until it's paid off. It'll take a long time, but I'm going to do it." My eyes filled with tears. "Derek, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Please, Dad, let me do this. I need to do this." I took the check, not because I needed the money, but because Derek needed to give it, needed to prove, to himself and to me, that he was different now. By summer, Derek and Julie's relationship had deepened. He brought her to meet me several more times. We'd graduated from coffee to occasional dinners. Julie fit naturally into our conversations, never intrusive but always engaged. She told me stories about her students, asked about my literacy tutoring, showed genuine interest in my life. One evening in July, after dinner at a restaurant downtown, Julie excused herself to take a phone call. Derek and I stood outside, waiting, and he turned to me. "I'm going to ask her to marry me." My heart jumped. "Are you sure?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything. She makes me want to be better. She holds me accountable but also believes in me. I love her, Dad. Really love her." "Then ask her." "I will. Soon. I'm saving for a ring. Nothing expensive, but something nice. Something she deserves." He did. Proposed in August. Julie said yes. They set a date for the following spring, wanting to do it right, plan it properly, save money for a small wedding. In September, 1 year after the bathroom fall, 1 year after everything changed, Derek asked if we could talk. Really talk. We were having our regular Saturday coffee, and he had something he needed to say. "I've been thinking about that night," he started. "The bathroom. When you fell and I didn't come. I need you to know something." I waited. "I heard your calls. I heard the phone ringing. I knew something might be wrong. But I was with Amber, and we were fighting, and I was drunk, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I thought you'd be fine. I thought you were overreacting, like I'd convinced myself you always were. But you weren't overreacting. You were dying, and I left you there." His voice broke. Tears streamed down his face, and he didn't try to hide them. I replay that night over and over. Think about what could have happened. You could have died on that floor, and my last act as your son would have been ignoring you. I can't take that back. I can't fix it. But I need you to know I see it now. I see what I did, and I'm so sorry. I reached across the table, took his hand. "I forgive you, Derek." "How? How can you forgive that?" "Because you're not that person anymore, and because holding on to it hurts me more than it hurts you. I forgive you." We sat there, holding hands across a coffee shop table, both of us crying, while people around us pretended not to notice. That afternoon, for the first time in over a year, I hugged my son. Really hugged him. He hugged back, tight, like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son." And I meant it, all of it. The love, the forgiveness, the hope for his future. The wedding was beautiful, small, intimate, held in the church where Derek and Julie had met. 73 guests, mostly Julie's family and friends, some of Derek's co-workers, Pastor Jim and several guys from the shelter who'd become Derek's support system. I walked Julie's mother down the aisle, since her father had passed years ago. Julie had asked me specifically, "You're going to be family," she said, "and Derek talks about you all the time. Says you saved his life by almost ending your relationship. That's pretty powerful." I stood next to Derek as his best man, watched him recite vows he'd written himself, promising to love Julie, honor her, build a life with her based on honesty and effort and growth. His voice never wavered. At the reception, Derek gave a speech that had everyone in tears. He thanked Julie for believing in him, thanked Pastor Jim for showing him a different path, and then he turned to me. "My dad is here today, and I need to say something to him in front of all of you. Dad, I was a terrible son. I used you, hurt you, abandoned you when you needed me most. You had every reason to cut me out of your life forever, but instead, you loved me enough to let me fail, loved me enough to set boundaries, loved me enough to show me what rock bottom looked like so I could decide if I wanted to climb back up. Everything I am today, every good choice I've made, started the day you said no. Thank you for saying no. Thank you for saving my life by almost ending our relationship. I love you." People applauded. I stood and hugged Derek while cameras flashed, and Julie cried happy tears. Later, during a quiet moment, Dorothy found me outside on the patio. We'd been dating for over a year now, taking things slow but steady. She slipped her hand into mine. "You did good, Clay. I didn't do anything. Derek did the work. You set the boundary that made the work possible. That took courage. I'm proud of you." I squeezed her hand, grateful for her presence in my life, for the way forward we were building together. The reception ended late. Derek and Julie left for a weekend honeymoon at a cabin in the mountains, paid for by money they'd saved together. As they drove away, Julie's car decorated with tin cans and well wishes. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. The next morning, Sunday, I went to church with Dorothy. The sermon was about redemption, about second chances, about how it's never too late to change course. The pastor, a different one from where Derek attended but equally wise, said something that stuck with me. God doesn't ask us to be perfect. He asks us to be honest. Honest about our failures, honest about our needs, honest about our boundaries. When we're honest, healing becomes possible. Not easy, but possible. After church, Dorothy and I went hiking. Our Saturday tradition had become a Sunday one, too. The trail was crowded with families, couples, people enjoying the early autumn weather. We walked hand in hand, talking about nothing important, comfortable in our silence when the conversation lulled. At the summit, looking out over the valley, I thought about the journey of the past 2 years. From the bathroom floor to this mountain top. From despair to hope. From enabling to boundaries. From breaking to healing. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Made it to the cabin. It's perfect. Thank you for everything, Dad. Love you. I texted back. Love you too. Enjoy your honeymoon. Dorothy read over my shoulder and smiled. He's going to be okay. Yes, I said. He is. We started back down the mountain. My hip, once broken, carried me easily. My heart, once shattered, beat steady and strong. My life, once consumed by worry and obligation, stretched ahead full of possibility. That evening, I sat on my porch with a book and a glass of wine. Sarah, my tenant, waved as she headed to her car for her night shift. Have a good evening, Mr. Morrison. You too, Sarah. The garage apartment looked perfect, maintained and respected. My house felt peaceful. The birdhouses Frank and I had built hung in the yard, occupied by families of wrens and chickadees. Everything I looked at represented something good, something chosen, something that added to my life instead of draining it. Mrs. Patterson came over with a plate of cookies. Thought you might want these. Made too many. We sat together, eating cookies, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. You know what I've learned? I said. What's that? Love without boundaries isn't love. It's just fear dressed up as devotion. Real love requires the courage to say no when yes would destroy both people. Real love means letting someone face consequences, even when every instinct screams to rescue them. Real love is hard. Mrs. Patterson patted my hand. But worth it. Look at Derek now. Look at you now. Hard was worth it. She was right. Later that night, I pulled out the journal I'd started keeping during my recovery. Flipped to the first entry, written from my hospital bed. Angry and hurt and lost. Read through months of pain, confusion, small victories, setbacks, growth. The final entry was from yesterday, before the wedding. I wrote a new one. Derek got married today. He's happy, healthy, building a real life. I'm happy, healthy, building a real life too. We found our way back to each other. But it's a different relationship now, built on honesty instead of obligation, on mutual respect instead of guilt, on earned trust instead of assumed forgiveness. It's better, harder, but better. I think Linda would be proud of both of us. I know I'm proud of him. And for the first time in years, I'm proud of me too. I closed the journal and looked at Linda's photo on the mantel. We did it, I whispered. He's going to be okay. And so am I. The house settled around me, familiar and safe. Outside, the night filled with cricket songs and the rustling of leaves. Inside, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Not because everything was perfect. Derek still had his struggles. I still had my worries. Life was still life, complicated and messy and unpredictable, but I'd learned something essential. I'd learned that loving someone doesn't mean destroying yourself for them. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let them figure it out. That rock bottom isn't the end of the story. It's often the beginning. I'd learned that it's never too late to choose yourself. Never too late to set boundaries. Never too late to start living instead of just surviving. Derek had to hit bottom to climb back up. I had to break completely to heal properly. Sometimes breaking is the beginning of becoming whole. As I headed to bed that night, I felt grateful for Mrs. Patterson's friendship, for Dorothy's companionship, for Harold's wisdom, for Frank's birdhouses and the book club and the literacy students, and every small piece of my rebuilt life. And I felt grateful for Derek, for the man he'd become, yes, but also for the crisis that forced us both to change. Because without that bathroom floor, without those 3 hours in the cold, without the hard choice to say no, we'd both still be slowly dying in our old patterns. The pain had purpose. The breaking had meaning. The ending was actually a beginning. And that, I realized, was the deepest lesson of all. That we don't get to control when the old version of our life ends, but we do get to decide what we build in its place. I chose to build something real, something honest, something that honored both Derek and myself. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, and the best. So here's what I want you to think about. Have you been setting boundaries with the people you love, or have you been setting yourself on fire to keep them warm? Are you enabling growth or preventing it? Are you choosing love that builds both people up, or love that tears you both down? It's never too late to change course. Never too late to choose yourself. Never too late for rock bottom to become solid ground. If my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you faced a similar situation? What did you do? How did it turn out? Your story might help someone else who's struggling with the same decision. And if you found value in this story, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel for more real-life stories, and sharing this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need reminding that boundaries aren't betrayal. They're love in its truest form. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some comfort, some clarity, or at least some company in whatever journey you're on. May you have the courage to set boundaries when you need them. May you have the strength to hold them when they're tested. And may you have the wisdom to know that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Take care of yourselves. You're worth it.